This here is a cup of a bad decision. I am so tired. I have been sleepy for like 2 days. So the only way I'm gonna get anything done is if I have a little boost of caffeine, even though it's like past 4 p.m. Oh well. Today I'm gonna talk about finances. So this is the first official finance video that I am making. I've been watching Budget Girl and sort of liked her idea of putting her debt in all of her finance posts, and I guess she was using it as a sort of accountability and like letting people in on her journey, her debt-free journey. And I sort of like that idea. I am a year and a half now into my debt-free journey, and it's a long journey because I am very low income. I'm a PhD student, so I'm in school, but I've got all this debt. And I was completely financially illiterate up until about a year and a half ago. So I have debt and it's difficult to climb out of it. It's going to take a long time, and I'm losing motivation. Not that I'm making bad financial decisions now, but it's just to keep that high energy, that high intensity, that gazelle intensity to paying off the debt is hard when you've got a long road ahead of you. Most people apparently take something like a year and a half to 2 years to become completely debt-free, and that's not the case. I don't even think I'm halfway. So I need motivation, and most of the stuff that I've been reading or watching and listening to have said that by doing a YouTube channel or sharing their journey through a blog or something like that has been really motivating, just being part of the debt-free community. So I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna follow the Budget Girl format where she did weekly posts and she put her debt in brackets for the title of each of her videos and her updates. That way she could have a visual cue of like how much her debt is going down. So I accumulate money throughout the month and I put it aside, and then at the end of the month I just make a lump sum payment onto whatever debt I am currently tackling. So maybe it'll just be a monthly one, but anyway, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. So for this first video, I'm going to start just by giving an introduction. How did I start my debt-free journey? Okay, so I say a year and a half, but it's like a year and like 2 months. So May 2020 is when I really got serious about my finances. Now, it's not the only time I tried to get serious with my finances. In my early 20s, I worked for a major bank and got interested in finance and whatnot. So I did start trying to adhere to a budget and do investing and that type of thing, but I never really stuck with it. Whenever I've tried to make a budget in the past, especially during the more difficult financial times when I wasn't able to work, when I had gotten really sick and was on government assistance, I just didn't have enough money to make ends meet. There was just no way for me to have all my bills covered with my income. It was just so difficult. So none of the budgets were ever realistic, and it was just very depressing to try and make one that I could never follow, and so I'd always let it fall. Another reason why my budgets and just trying to get better with money over the course of my life, why those other times failed, is because I had really bad invisible money scripts. And this comes from the book, or at least I was introduced to this concept from the book You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sicero. And that was a really good book that sort of primed me and really made me examine what were my ideas and thoughts and understanding of money. My invisible money scripts were things like women can't make a living wage. We can have like small part-time jobs or just like, small retail jobs, but we can't really provide for a living the way a man can. And this wasn't something that, I could tell you that I had. I'm sure that if someone would have asked me, I'd be like, oh yeah, men and women can make the same. It was an invisible money script. It was something that I had buried in the back of my subconscious, it was just a way of understanding the world that I didn't realize I had. And by reading that book, it really made me realize these things. And one of the ways that this book helped me to uncover these things, was by making me examine how I grew up with money. So what was the financial situation in the household that I grew up in? How did my father deal with money? How did my mother deal with money? What are my memories with money? What's my first memory with money? What are some emotions that I have, from my childhood in terms of money? What were my role models doing for money? Family members, all that type of stuff. How was money spent? Was there a budget? Like how I was raised. And that stuff really made me realize what I thought about money wasn't actually what I thought about money, because what I actually thought about money revolved around the way that I was raised with money. So I sort of had to really unpack all that. And then when I unpacked all that, I realized that one of the reasons why I had failed so much with trying to organize my finances in the past was because I was holding myself back. If I were to succeed, then my framework for viewing the world would no longer be correct, because my framework said that women can't provide for themselves, especially women who are sick. So, you stand in your way. Anyway, it's a great book. Go give it a read and see if it does anything for you. Another thing was that instead of really doing the work to really understand things, I just assumed that things were impossible. So, making a decent wage while chronically ill is impossible. It's not that it was impossible, it's that it was really difficult to figure out how to do it. And because that was so difficult, I found it very intimidating. And so instead of doing the emotional labor I needed in order to find ways to make a living while chronically ill, I just chose to say it's impossible instead and be angry about it. I had to sort of have enough mental space and mental energy to commit to finding the answer to those questions. And here I definitely want to put a caveat that when you're spending all of your emotional energy on unhealthy relationships, you're not going to have the mental energy to put into finding the answers to those questions, like how am I going to afford a living on my own? Yeah, if you have a lot of unhealthy relationships in your life that are being an emotional drain, being gaslit, that type of stuff, you're not going to have the mental energy that you need to examine these deep-seated questions and these deep-seated beliefs. So that is a caveat I do want to put in here. Only once I addressed those unhealthy relationships and got them out of my life, and dealt with a lot of the childhood traumas that I had and emotional issues that I had, then I had enough emotional space to start tackling these bigger questions of how am I going to survive? How am I going to make money? Is it possible? And of course it's possible, but how do I make that happen? So those were definitely key to having my budgets actually stick this time and having financial plans that I could actually adhere to and make progress on. Whereas before in my life, I had all those drains on me and I just wasn't mentally prepared to commit to these plans. A year ago, May 2020, I got serious about my finances again and actually made a budget that I could stick to and worked on increasing my income and decreasing my expenses and just really taking charge of my finances. So just before that, March 2020, I was running a deficit every month. Each month, I was spending about $1,000 more than I was making. Now, I'm a PhD student at a university in Canada, Ontario, and I have a funding package. So that means I receive a minimum guaranteed income from the university each semester, whatever for the academic year, while I'm studying. When taking into account, that income that I had from the university, which was my sole income, and my rent and my cell phone bill and my food and all of that stuff, I was $1,000 short every month. And to cover that $1,000, I was running up credit card debt and student loans. I was struggling a lot at that point, really worried about money. I didn't want to be taking out loans. And I was really deep into my invisible scripts of I'm never gonna get out of here. Like how, retirement, don't even talk to me about that. Like that's just terrifying because I've got all this debt and I couldn't see me living without taking out debt every month. So how could I even consider repaying it if I can't have my basic necessities covered? So I was in a lot of despair. in May 2020, I fell hard into the financial space. So I was reading financial books, listening to podcasts and the YouTube videos, and it was so motivating and inspiring. I was now in this space where I had finally healed from some emotional traumas and had like taken unhealthy relationships out of my life and just put up boundaries. And so I guess I had all this room to start growing, so all the books I was reading, I was just taking in, and it was exciting. I had the mental energy to like really take this in and apply it. Another thing that happened in May was, with everything that was going on globally, a lot of courses had shifted to online, so a lot of undergrad courses. And so I ended up scoring an extra 2 TA ships that summer. So that was an extra about $1,200 I was receiving every month, above what I normally was getting. So that was a really good boost to my budget for the summer semester that I was able to use to gain traction in these financial plans that I was learning about. If I were to line up chronologically the steps that I feel allowed me to get to this place where I am now from where I was, say, in March 2020, I would probably say that the very first one, step 0, was to be in a safe place with no emotional drains on me. So I needed to have that level playing field. And having an apartment to myself was massive here because there was no one around me triggering my emotions. I was just a blank slate. So that was very valuable, and that was just, in my opinion, a necessity for me to grow. Being alone also meant that there were no drains on my energy. I didn't have to worry about caring for someone else, so all of my energy was for myself. There was no, someone is not having a very good day, so I need to console them, or there was nothing like that. It was all me. I had all this energy to put into myself. The next step is addressing those invisible money scripts that I had, that I spoke about earlier. The things that I thought about money, like the underlying principles of money that I didn't even know I was thinking. And that book, You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sicero, was really monumental in me understanding that I actually had some very skewed opinions or thoughts on money, and that they needed to be addressed. And that was monumental in me actually getting a financial plan that would work for me. The next one I would say is I had to learn the concept of money dials. I used to think that if you go on a budget and you restrict yourself, then you're automatically miserable. If I could not buy things on a whim, that I would be miserable. So walking through a store, if I saw something and I really liked it, telling myself no would make me miserable and would just be this awful thing. So why would I put myself through that? I had to learn that that's not the case. And the book by Ramit Sethi that's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich really helped me with that concept of money dials. So, we spend our money on various things, and we have to understand and adjust the dials. So we have to know what we actually enjoy, what brings us joy and what doesn't. So for me, my money dials are books, plants, that type of stuff. So those money dials are okay to have a little bit higher, but things like just junk and home decor, like that doesn't actually bring me happiness. It's just like a fleeting impulse that I get when I see pretty things. Those money dials can be put to 0. Why am I spending money on that? I would be much better served and much happier spending that money on books. So understanding that budgeting isn't necessarily telling yourself no to everything. It's only saying no to the things that don't serve you. Really made me become more interested in budgeting. Budgeting became more appealing to me because I started realizing that it's not going to make me miserable. It's actually going to make me feel good because I'm not going to have that guilt on spending money on the things that I actually enjoy spending money on. I don't feel guilty when I buy books, right? But I feel guilty when I buy junk. So that was another good thing to look up. I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi helped me with that one. The next one is getting officially financially literate. Understanding taxes, that type of stuff that was very intimidating to me. And again, part of the invisible money scripts, to me, that's not something that women did. That was something that men did, and men took care of that. It was a mess up in here, man. So understanding all that. And the book that helped me, that was again another book helped me with that, and that was Smart Women Finish Rich by David Bach. Yes, it's written by a man. I'm glad that didn't, although I was put off by it, I'm glad that that didn't stop me from reading the book, because the book was really good and it did really help me understand financial space and how I should be organizing my finances. Like he walked you through, you should have folders for this and this and this. And so I organized my finances, mostly because it's also a US book, so there's some stuff that doesn't apply. But I generally organized my financial papers based on his system, and that just helped me sort things out. And then that year, after I read that book, I went and I looked up an accountant, got my taxes done for the last like 3-4 years because I hadn't done them. Yeah, and that was such a great feeling. When I got my taxes done, I was like, man, now I feel like in control. I felt like I had power. I felt like I was I felt good. I felt empowered, and I felt just amazing. It was just really good to feel like I was in control of my finances, or getting control over my finances. I could not describe to you how great that feeling was, and it motivated me to keep going and do more. Now, the next one, and it's the one that I'm currently still on, that is I discovered the Dave Ramsey baby steps. Now, I do not agree with with who he is as a person. So I'm not a fan of who Dave Ramsey is as a person. I do not agree with how he runs his business and how he treats people. Yeah, I'll leave some links down in the description. I'm not going to go into it. But his baby steps method were monumental for me in getting my budget set up and coming up with a plan on how to pay off debt. So to go through it really quick, the baby steps are step, say 0 would be to just get current on everything. So that's your starting point. Your starting point is once you're current on everything, then you start the baby steps. Step 1 is to start a baby emergency fund. And this is really important because when you start the baby steps, you are swearing off debt. Debt is not a thing anymore. You're not using debt ever again. So you need that emergency fund, because if something happens to the car, or you forgot about an expense coming up and it's not in the budget and you can't afford it, whatever, it's for those emergencies, because emergencies will happen. And I have actually a couple of videos that I posted about a situation that happened end of October, start of September in 2020, where I had 3 back-to-back emergencies happen, and my emergency fund covered it. And just the feelings that I had, knowing that these emergencies happened and that I was able to cover them, and I didn't have to, reach out to anybody. I didn't have to not eat for a week. I was covered. I was okay. That my budget was intact and I was able to cover the emergencies. It was a really great feeling. I'll link the video in the description below. Sometimes I like to go back and watch that and just remember those feelings of just feeling good, but also physically confused, because I was so used to having anxiety when these things happened. But because I didn't have the anxiety, because I had the emergency fund, my body was confused. It was well, aren't I supposed to be freaking out right now? And it's well, no, I'm okay. And yeah, it was a weird thing. But anyway, those videos are linked down below. That first step, I was able to save very quickly, because I was making that extra money from those extra 2 TA ships over the summer. So I was able to build up my emergency fund within 2 months, and then went into baby step 2 right after, which is the pay off all debt except for a mortgage. I don't have a mortgage, so I have to just pay off all my debt. That's where I am now in baby step 2. That's the debt-free journey, where I've been stuck for a year now. That's the number that's appearing in the title of this video. That's how much, as of today, debt I have left to pay off before I am out of baby step 2 and done my debt-free journey. Yeah, it's gonna take a while. But anyway, the point of this video is to help motivate me to keep working hard on getting that debt paid off. That debt, at this point, the only debts that I have left are my car loan. I have an overpayment from when I was on government assistance, and I have student loans, and the student loans are big. That's going to be difficult to do. But luckily for now, the only thing that's accruing interest is the car loan, and I'm hoping to have that done by the end of the year, but that's going to be in my goals, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. the next baby steps, which, I'll just list off real quick. Baby step 3 is to have a fully funded emergency fund. So that's saving up 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in case an emergency happens. Baby steps 4, 5, and 6 are meant to be done together. 4 is invest 15% of your income. 5 is save for children's college tuition. And 6 is pay off the mortgage. 6 is pay off the mortgage. Baby step 7 is like your end goal of you are financially secure. You got lots of money and you're able to give and share with other people. When I started all this, I was already current on all my bills, so I went straight into baby step 1. By the end of July, I believe I had my baby emergency fund, baby step 1, done, and then I went into a debt repayment. When I started this, this is how much my debt was when I started this debt-free journey in May 2020.